Angelina Garcia was a name known in every boardroom and high-profile networking event in the city. At 37, she was the CEO of a thriving tech company, a position she had earned through sheer determination, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to her goals. Her journey to success was not an easy one. It was marked by relentless hard work, late nights, and sacrifices that few could imagine. Upon graduation, Angelina joined a burgeoning tech startup, quickly rising through the ranks due to her innovative ideas and strategic thinking. Her ability to foresee market trends and adapt the company's strategies accordingly earned her the respect of her peers and superiors. By the time she was in her late 20s, Angelina had already made a name for herself as a formidable player in the tech industry. Despite her professional success, Angelina's personal life was a stark contrast. Her relentless pursuit of career goals left little room for personal relationships. She had dated occasionally, but none of her relationships lasted long. Her partners often found it difficult to cope with her demanding schedule and her uncompromising drive. Over the years, Angelina had grown accustomed to her solitude, convincing herself that her career was her true companion. However, as she approached her late 30s, the loneliness began to creep in. She would return to her luxurious penthouse after long days at the office, only to be greeted by silence. Her achievements, while impressive, offered little comfort in the quiet moments of introspection. She yearned for companionship, for someone who could understand and appreciate the woman behind the powerful work. David Newman was an 18-year-old young man with big dreams and a determination that belied his years. He hailed from a small, economically struggling town where opportunities were scarce, but his ambition and intelligence set him apart. From a young age, David was fascinated by computers and technology. He would spend hours tinkering with old machines, teaching himself coding and dreaming of one day becoming a successful IT specialist. When David received a scholarship to study computer science at a prestigious university in the big city, it felt like his dreams were finally within reach. The day he left his hometown was filled with mixed emotions, excitement for the future, and a pang of guilt for leaving his family behind. They had always been his biggest supporters, and he promised himself that he would make them proud and provide for them once he succeeded. Upon arriving in the city, David was awestruck by the sheer size and energy of it all. The towering skyscrapers, the bustling streets, and the endless opportunities invigorated him. But city life was expensive, and despite his scholarship, he needed to find a job to cover his living expenses and support his studies. After a few weeks of searching, he landed a job at a quaint little bakery near his dormitory. It wasn't much, but it was a start. David's days were long and demanding. He balanced his rigorous university coursework with early morning shifts at the bakery. Despite the challenges, he maintained a positive attitude and a strong work ethic. He was determined to excel in his studies and make the most of every opportunity that came his way. His physical appearance, tall, muscular from years of helping his father with heavy lifting, and with strikingly handsome features, often drew attention, but he was focused on his goals and had little time for distractions. David had never had a serious girlfriend. His small-town upbringing and the pressures of his studies left little room for romance. He often felt a twinge of envy when he saw his classmates in relationships, but he reminded himself that he had a different path to follow. His priority was to succeed in his studies and secure a stable future for his family. Working at the bakery provided David with a modest income and a sense of routine. He enjoyed the simple tasks, the smell of freshly baked bread, and the occasional friendly interactions with the regular customers. One morning, as he was mopping the floor before the shop opened, he saw a woman enter who immediately captured his attention. She was strikingly beautiful and exuded an air of confidence and sophistication. David quickly put away the mop and rushed to the counter to take her order. This woman was Angelina Garcia, the successful CEO who had recently caught his eye. She ordered her usual, an espresso and a croissant, and David couldn't help but notice the way she carried herself with an effortless grace. He greeted her warmly, and she responded with a polite smile. Over the next few weeks, this became a regular occurrence. David looked forward to these brief interactions, finding a strange comfort in their familiarity. As he was washing the floors early in the morning, David noticed Angelina walk into the bakery. He quickly put away his mop and rushed to the cash register, eager to serve her. Angelina, dressed in her usual sophisticated attire, greeted him with a warm smile. She ordered her usual espresso and croissant, and David, trying to hide his nervousness, made small talk as he prepared her order. He found himself looking forward to her visits, drawn to her confident presence, and intrigued by her aura of success. As weeks went by, David and Angelina's interactions grew more frequent and more personal. Angelina, always perceptive, noticed the young man's dedication and his genuine interest in their conversations. She began to see him as more than just the bakery clerk. There was a warmth in his eyes, a sincerity that she found refreshing in the otherwise cutthroat world she navigated daily. She started making subtle efforts to get to know him better, asking about his studies and his life in the city. David was flattered by Angelina's attention. He found himself opening up to her, sharing stories about his childhood, his family, and his aspirations. He talked about his dream of becoming an IT specialist and how he was working hard to achieve it. Angelina listened intently, impressed by his determination and charmed by his humility. She admired his strong work ethic and the dedication he showed towards his goals. Angelina, in turn, shared snippets of her own life. She talked about her journey to success, the challenges she had faced, and the sacrifices she had made along the way. She spoke about the demanding nature of her job and how it had left her with little time for personal relationships. David found her stories inspiring, a testament to what one could achieve with hard work and perseverance. Their conversations soon extended beyond the bakery. Angelina, fascinated by David's potential and driven by her growing attraction to him, decided to take a more active role in his life. One day, after finishing her coffee, she invited David to dinner to discuss a possible job opportunity. She mentioned that her company was always looking for young talent and that she might be able to help him find a better job than his current one. David, though initially hesitant, accepted the invitation. He was both excited and nervous. The prospect of a better job was appealing, but he also couldn't ignore the growing feelings he had for Angelina. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, confident, successful, and incredibly attractive. Despite the significant age difference, he found himself drawn to her in ways he couldn't fully understand. Angelina, always the strategist, had her own reasons for inviting David to dinner. She was a woman accustomed to getting what she wanted, and she had developed a keen interest in the young man. While her offer to help him find a better job was genuine, she had other plans in mind. She wanted to get to know David better, to explore the attraction she felt, and to see if there was potential for something more between them. As the day of the dinner approached, David felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. He spent extra time choosing his outfit, wanting to make a good impression. When he arrived at the upscale restaurant Angelina had chosen, he was struck by how out of place he felt. The restaurant was elegant and sophisticated, a far cry from the humble bakery where he worked. Angelina, looking stunning in a sleek black dress, greeted him warmly and led him to their table. The dinner was a turning point in their relationship. They talked about everything: David's studies, Angelina's work, their hopes and dreams. As the evening progressed, the initial nervousness faded, replaced by a growing sense of connection. They laughed, shared stories, and for a moment, it felt as if the age difference and the complexities of their lives didn't matter. When the bill arrived, David, feeling a bit embarrassed, admitted that he couldn't afford to pay for such an expensive meal. Angelina laughed softly, reassuring him that it was her treat. She paid the bill, and as they left the restaurant, suggested they take a taxi back to her place. David, still processing the evening's events, agreed, feeling a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. Arriving at Angelina's luxurious home, David was once again struck by the stark contrast between their lives. She thanked him for the evening, kissing him on the cheek before heading inside. David returned to his dorm with a whirlwind of emotions and the beginnings of feelings he couldn't quite name. The dinner marked a significant turning point in the relationship between David and Angelina. After that evening, they began to see each other more frequently. Angelina, always keen on having her way, found herself increasingly drawn to the young man's charm and innocence. She saw in him a raw potential and a refreshing sincerity that was absent in the men she usually encountered. David, on his part, was both flattered and bewildered by the attention he was receiving from Angelina. He admired her success and confidence, and he couldn't deny the growing attraction he felt. There was something intoxicating about being in her presence, something that made him feel both excited and nervous. One day, after their usual morning chat at the bakery, Angelina suggested they meet for dinner again. She mentioned she had some contacts in the IT industry and could potentially help David find an internship or a part-time job that was more aligned with his career goals. David agreed, grateful for her willingness to help and curious to see where this would lead. After dinner, Angelina proposed they go back to her place to continue their conversation. David, feeling a growing connection, agreed. They took a taxi to her luxurious home, and once inside, Angelina offered him a drink. They sat in her elegant living room, talking and laughing, the atmosphere growing more intimate with each passing moment. Angelina, sensing the perfect opportunity, leaned closer to David, her eyes locking onto his. She began to gently massage his shoulders, praising him for his intelligence and determination. David, though initially taken aback, found the sensation soothing. The tension in his muscles eased, replaced by a warmth that spread through his body. The massage grew more intimate as Angelina's hands moved to his neck and then to his chest. David could feel her breath on his skin, her touch sending shivers down his spine. Before he knew it, Angelina was kissing his ear, whispering words of admiration and desire. David was overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, but he didn't resist. There was something irresistibly magnetic about Angelina, something that made him want to surrender to her advances. They moved to the sofa, and Angelina straddled him, her lips trailing kisses down his neck and chest. David could smell the faint scent of alcohol mixed with her sweet perfume, a combination that made his head spin. He was inexperienced, but Angelina guided him with a confident, practiced touch. That night, they made love, and for David, it was a revelation. It was his first time, and Angelina's experience made it an incredibly intense and pleasurable encounter. Afterwards, as they lay together, David felt a mix of emotions. There was a sense of exhilaration, but also a creeping realization that he was stepping into a complicated and potentially dangerous territory. Angelina, on the other hand, was satisfied. She had wanted David, and now he was hers, at least for the moment. From that night onward, David and Angelina's relationship grew more intense and complicated. They began meeting every Friday and weekend, their encounters fueled by a potent mix of passion and secrecy. David found himself eagerly anticipating their time together, drawn to Angelina's confidence and the thrill of their illicit affair. Angelina, for her part, was equally captivated by David's youthful energy and innocence, and she relished the control she had over him. Angelina's influence on David's life extended beyond their physical relationship. She began to support him financially, buying him a new laptop and paying for the best programming courses. She even gifted him a new phone to replace his outdated one. David was grateful for her generosity, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her kindness than met the eye. Their weekends together were a whirlwind of luxury and indulgence. Angelina would take David to high-end restaurants, exclusive clubs, and private parties, introducing him to a world he had never known. He was dazzled by the opulence and the attention, but he also felt increasingly out of place. Despite his growing discomfort, he couldn't deny the allure of Angelina and the lifestyle she offered. However, as time went on, Angelina's demands on David's time and attention grew more insistent. She began to call him almost every evening, expecting him to drop whatever he was doing and come to her. At first, David complied, flattered by her desire for his company. But soon, he started to feel suffocated by her possessiveness. He was juggling his studies, his job at the bakery, and his secret relationship with Angelina, and it was becoming too much to handle. One evening, David had plans to go out with friends from college, including Yuki Nakamoto, a classmate from Japan whom he had grown particularly close to. When Angelina called, demanding that he come over, David hesitated. He had been looking forward to spending time with his friends, and he didn't want to cancel on them. Mustering up the courage, he told Angelina that he couldn't come that night. Angelina's reaction was immediate and fierce. She screamed at him over the phone, accusing him of neglecting her and threatening to take away everything she had given him. David was taken aback by her anger and the intensity of her threats. She warned him that if he didn't come over, she would make sure he regretted it. Terrified and unsure of what to do, David reluctantly canceled his plans and went to her. The pattern continued, with Angelina becoming increasingly demanding and controlling. She drank heavily, drowning her insecurities in alcohol and sex. David found her behavior disturbing, but he was too entangled in their relationship to break free. Each time he tried to assert his independence, Angelina would lash out, using her financial support and his feelings of gratitude to manipulate him. Their encounters were intense and passionate, with Angelina often pushing him to his limits. She was experienced and adventurous, and David found himself learning and experiencing things he had never imagined. But the emotional toll of their relationship was beginning to weigh heavily on him. David's feelings for Yuki also complicated matters. He had grown close to her, finding solace in her kindness and understanding. Yuki was aware of the strain David was under, and she often expressed concern for his well-being. David felt torn between his loyalty to Angelina and his burgeoning affection for Yuki. He knew that his relationship with Angelina was unhealthy, but he didn't know how to extricate himself from it. As Angelina's demands grew more excessive, David started to see the darker side of her personality. She was possessive, jealous, and prone to violent outbursts. The more he tried to pull away, the tighter she held on. David realized that he was trapped in a relationship that was spiraling out of control, and he didn't know how to escape. As David's relationship with Angelina grew more volatile, he found himself turning more and more to Yuki for support. Yuki was a steady presence in his life, offering a calm and understanding ear amidst the chaos that Angelina brought. She noticed the strain David was under and frequently asked if he was okay. Eventually, David began to open up to her, sharing the details of his tumultuous relationship with Angelina. David told Yuki about the demands, the financial support, the intense sexual encounters, and the growing possessiveness that Angelina displayed. He confessed how suffocated he felt, how he couldn't keep up with Angelina's expectations while also managing his studies and job. He told her about the night Angelina threatened to take everything away from him if he didn't come over, and how scared he felt in those moments. Yuki listened intently, her concern deepening with each revelation. She told David that it sounded like he was in an abusive relationship and that he needed to find a way out before it got worse. She warned him that Angelina's behavior was dangerous and that her possessiveness could escalate to something even more harmful. David knew she was right, but he felt trapped. The gifts, the support, the allure of the lifestyle Angelina offered, they were all chains that bound him to her. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Angelina, David went to Yuki's dorm room seeking refuge. He told her about the fight, how Angelina had accused him of seeing another girl and had threatened to ruin his life if he left her. Yuki, seeing the desperation in David's eyes, told him he needed to end things with Angelina for his own safety. She reminded him that he had his whole life ahead of him, a future that didn't have to be dominated by Angelina's toxic influence. Buoyed by Yuki's support, David decided that he would end things with Angelina. It wasn't going to be easy, but he knew it was necessary. That evening, he called Angelina and told her he needed to talk. She sensed the seriousness in his tone and insisted he come over immediately. David, knowing the confrontation would be inevitable, steeled himself for what was to come. When David arrived at Angelina's house, she was dressed provocatively in lace lingerie and stockings, clearly expecting to seduce him and patch things up through physical intimacy. She welcomed him with a sultry smile and tried to draw him into a kiss, but David gently pushed her away. He took a deep breath and told her that he couldn't continue their relationship. He explained that it was too demanding, too unhealthy, and that he needed to focus on his studies and his future. Angelina's reaction was immediate and explosive. Her face contorted with rage, and she began shouting at David, accusing him of betraying her and of having someone else. She threw insults and threats at him, saying she had done everything for him, and this was how he repaid her. David tried to remain calm, apologizing and reiterating that their relationship was not sustainable. He told her they needed to part ways and find partners who were better suited to their respective lives. As David tried to leave, Angelina blocked his path, her eyes wild with anger. She accused him again of cheating and demanded to know who the other girl was. David, hoping to defuse the situation, admitted that there was someone else he had feelings for. This admission sent Angelina into a frenzy. She lunged at him, scratching his face and trying to choke him in her fury. David, struggling to breathe, tried to reason with her, but Angelina was beyond reason. She screamed and clawed at him, her nails digging into his skin. David, realizing that she had lost control, pushed her away, causing her to stumble and fall. In a blind rage, Angelina grabbed a knife from a nearby table and charged at David. He managed to block the first strike with his forearm, but the knife dug into his flesh, causing him to cry out in pain. Angelina pulled the knife out, preparing to strike again, but David, driven by sheer survival instinct, pushed her away with all his strength. She fell backwards, hitting her head on the edge of a coffee table and crumpling to the floor. Blood pooled around her head, and the knife slipped from her grasp. David, panting and bleeding, rushed to her side, but it was too late. Angelina lay motionless, her eyes staring blankly ahead. The reality of what had just happened began to sink in as David stared at Angelina's lifeless body. Panic surged through him, and he quickly reached for his phone to call the police. His hands trembled as he explained the situation to the dispatcher, emphasizing that it had been an act of self-defense. The minutes stretched endlessly as he waited for the authorities to arrive, his mind racing with fear and regret. When the police arrived, they found David covered in blood, his arm still bleeding from the knife wound. They immediately took control of the scene, assessing Angelina's condition and confirming that she was dead. David was handcuffed and placed in the back of a squad car, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He kept replaying the events in his head, wondering if there had been another way to resolve the situation without such a tragic outcome. At the police station, David was questioned extensively about his relationship with Angelina and the events leading up to her death. He recounted everything: the financial support, the possessiveness, the threats, and finally, the violent confrontation that ended her life. The detectives listened carefully, taking notes and occasionally glancing at each other with knowing looks. One of the detectives, an experienced investigator named Detective Ramirez, took a particular interest in David's case. Ramirez had seen many similar situations in his career and knew the importance of gathering all the facts before jumping to conclusions. He decided to dig deeper into Angelina's background and her relationship with David. Meanwhile, David was allowed to make a phone call. He called Yuki, who rushed to the police station as soon as she heard what had happened. Yuki was devastated but determined to support David. She provided a statement to the police, corroborating David's story about Angelina's increasingly erratic behavior and her threats. She described how David had confided in her about his fears and the control Angelina had over his life. Yuki remained by David's side throughout the ordeal, offering emotional support and helping him navigate the legal process. She encouraged him to hire a good defense attorney, and with her help, they found a lawyer experienced in cases involving self-defense claims. The lawyer meticulously reviewed the evidence, including the statements from witnesses and the forensic analysis of the crime scene. As the months passed, David and Yuki's relationship grew stronger. They spent their weekends exploring the city, enjoying simple pleasures like picnics in the park and late-night study sessions at their favorite cafe. Yuki's presence brought a sense of normalcy and stability to David's life, helping him to regain his confidence and self-worth.